With Martinsville in the books, Brian and I turn our attention to Texas. Mile and a half season is upon us. We have the Automotive Echotrader Echopark Automotive Trader Race Car Automotive 400 this week. Very excited to talk all things Texas, recap all that was Martinsville, and talk about how I missed another William Byron outright, despite betting him every week last year and crushing him. All that on today's Angle of Pursuit podcast.
Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack.
Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
Brian Twining, Willie B finds victory lane yet again. Despite not really feeling, at least like initially, like he never really felt like he was gonna like race to the front and be there and be amazing all day, but he does what he does. He's an awesome driver. He's got a great pit crew that puts him in place and finds an opportunity and takes it and manages despite overtime to find a way to get to victory lane.
Yeah, and that was something that I'm fairly confident if we go back and we watch our shows last week, like we talked about his opening number, even at the 12-1 or whatever it was, that this feels like a week where a guy like Byron, who just when he opens that long, he seems to show up. And that was the one thing that everybody talked about, is that if this does get to a late race restart, or if it comes down to pit crews, like who do you trust more than William Byron? Like there's nobody in the sport right now that I would rather have in the car or as my crew chief in Rudy Fugel when making these decisions. And, they took a risk being the first guy to come down pit lane, but he made up that whatever gap he had at the end. And because he had the freshest tires first, like it got to the front, and despite this stupid overtime crap, like he still got the dub. I mean, at this point, how do you not bet Byron almost every single week when he opens not as the favorite? I mean,
and then I had him at Richmond, and of course he was right there. And then Denny has like the pit stop of his lifetime, and jumps to the front. Larson still ends up in front of Byron despite coming in because of a caution due to him being wrecked. And it's like, how? I'm just like, the weeks I'm on him, crazy stuff like that happens. The weeks I'm not on him, he wins. He's won Daytona. He won a road course. He won last week. Like, this dude is just winning everywhere.
Yeah, and, we talked about it when we recorded the DFS show. Like, after practice and qualifying, one of the first bet I made when the lines reopened was William Byron 20-1, which was just absurd for anybody to open him at that number. Like, I don't care if he has a mediocre car. He has become what Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski were like in their prime of their careers. You never count this guy out of a race. And anytime you can get a good number on him, I think it's a good idea to lay even a small bet, because he can get there one way or another.
Yeah. And we talked about it. And I end up going with the other guy at 14 because I'm like, well, I can't bet Byron at 14 because you bet him at 20. And of course that's not as good as the number is 20, knowing that 14 is a good number if the guy wins the race. So, so Christopher Bell, thank you for having a phenomenal day. You were just peachy. So let's talk DraftKings. Let's talk betting card, and then obviously we'll jump into Texas, get some initial thoughts on kind of where we're at and all that good stuff. So let me present my screen here.
I will say, as Kyle's finding this, that race was boring as shit. I enjoyed it just from, I like watching the cars go around in circles now, but I mean, from a new fan perspective, they probably fell asleep. I'll just end it with that.
Yeah, it's definitely like a conveyor belt, but there is like, once you've been watching for a while, it's easy to get excited about the idea of, okay, when do we pit? When do we take tires? When do we take 2? Do we take 4? All that good stuff. So Blaney, we'll review all 3 lineups that we built on the show. Blaney was fine. Started 9th, moved up to 5th. Only 15 fastest laps. It's fine. Bell
I will say
stunk.
about so I wanted to mention about Ryan Blaney. Like 5th place position looks fantastic, but it wasn't until really late, like I'm talking 40 to go, 50 to go in the race, did we actually see a 5th place car out of him. Like it took him the entire race to figure out what they wanted to do there. So I think his finishing result is kind of the same as what we saw out of Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher back in Phoenix, just as a quick comparison.
Yeah, for sure. Even Byron to a lesser degree, like they
I mean,
definitely
he was the
weren't.
only one that could make his way through the field. I will say,
That's
like
true.
early on, he was the only guy that was making
That is
passes.
true. Chase Briscoe was a little underwhelming. We thought maybe he could be a little bit stronger. Obviously, finishes in the top 10, but that's about it.
He got effed in his first, I believe it was the first pit stop. Maybe it was the end of the stage where he lost like 6 spots, and that ruined his day. Like track
Yep.
position was king. So
And then our guy Josh Berry went backwards. I had some issues, obviously. Ryan Preece managed to end up in the top 10, and Noah Gragson ended up in the top 20, although I feel like he had a little bit better of a day.
it was, I mean, that last restart was chaotic as hell. I mean, if you're on NASCAR social on Twitter, like you saw the amount of people that had a Gilliland top 10 get crushed on the final lap. So, and he ran the majority of the race inside the top 10 too. So, a lot of times finishing results, especially when you have overtime finishes, do not tell the proper story of how a race went, and
Yeah.
especially DFS. This is why people say all the time, like you cannot watch your DFS lineups because you'll have a heart attack and celebrate and you'll go through the full range of emotions.
Yeah. And that's why not NASCAR betting is hard. 98% of the race you could be right and get it wrong.
Yep.
You could be wrong 98% of the race and get it right. So
Yeah.
interesting to watch. Next lineup, Dennis Hamlin was a little underwhelming. Especially given where we were at and talking about him kind of prior to the race. We
Track
talked about
position, man. Telling
him
you.
and Larson as the favorites. Both should be dominant. Larson jumps out to the front and runs away for a long time. Hamlin, not so much. Led 66 laps, so that's good. Had some nice results kind of in the middle of the race. 28 fastest laps. But ended up only finishing 11th. It's kind of annoying. Obviously, Larson was great. Briscoe was fine.
Yeah,
Gragson
but I
was.
mean, even Denny though, like he's probably 4th if he doesn't inexplicably pit before
That's
the
true.
last restart. Like, did he think that the guys behind him were going to come when tires app meant nothing?
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird too because sometimes these veteran guys, like we saw, what it was Bristol, where they all the vets just let it and they figured it out,
True.
and then sometimes that retracts or they almost like they overthink it. It's like when you
Yeah.
go golfing and you looking at a putt and you think you're like on the PGA Tour. You need to add like 7 inches of break to the left or the right, and you could
Yep.
really just putt it straight in and not like overthink it.
Yeah,
But
it has very
that's kind
minimal
of how
trouble.
Hamlin is. Like he overthinks it, and on fancy courses where the green is crazy, those are all going in. But on other tracks, he's like, oh, I putted it 4 feet by the hole, and now it's putting it back for par, and it's like, come on, Denny, figure it out.
Yeah.
This was our best lineup, and in fact, I was texting you a little bit. I did a $50 single entry, and I really wish I'd put this in there because it would have been good for like 15th place and like $200. So that would have been really nice. But so obviously Hamlin was fine. Byron was good. I don't remember if we had any extra salary on this one. I wonder if we could have gotten Larson and Byron. Buescher was pretty good. Got in the top 15. Obviously, we thought it might be a little bit of a climb for him to kind of get where he needed to go. Bubba Wallace started second, finished fourth, led 31 or had 31 fast slaps. Pretty strong day for him. Priest, obviously, and then even Hemrick at 5,200 at 7% to get 23 points. I'm not going to be upset about that. Especially
Yeah,
after
no, I
what we
I think
saw from
pivoting.
Stenhouse and some of the
Yeah,
other guys.
that's what I was gonna say. Is pivoting off of Burton in this one really helped it cash. Like Harrison Burton was running fine. I believe at one point he
Yeah.
had gotten up to like 26th or something. and then he got pinballed after one of the restarts, which lost that track position. You know, if the leaders were having issues passing lapped cars, there was no way that Burton was going to make up those spots.
Very Harrison Burton. So Harrison Burton was
Yep.
17% and only scored 9 points. Ricky Stenhouse was 6%, but only scored 7 points. And then over here, Hamrick was 7%, moved up 8 spots and 23 points. So for that salary,
look at that.
Allows you to get a lot done. I was really happy with that. Let's talk betting. Overall, not the best week. Probably the first week in the negative for me in a few, but we're still both in the green, so that feels really good. SHR over RFK, like that. Briscoe top Ford. I knew what I was dealing with. Briscoe over Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott. I want to talk about him for a second because I rewatched the restart for overtime, and he got squirrely coming around turn 2. I wonder if his tires, grab the track and he doesn't kind of, fishtail a little bit coming around there. If he doesn't jump to the front, and all of a sudden we're talking about him as the winner, because average ass didn't look so average ass.
He hasn't looked average the last couple of weeks. Like maybe there's something to the 9.
I don't know. I feel like we're getting set up for us to go all in on him this week. And
look, I would have been happy had Chase Elliott won, because although it's not reflected on the betting card here, I will say, so when I'm in Vegas, I go way heavier personally than I advocate for on the show, just because like I have the funds to do this, and I had outrights on, I believe at the restart, 7 of the top 10 drivers, and the 3 that I didn't, that were up front, were Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin, who led the majority of the race. And I was having a heart attack that, of course, the only 2 guys I didn't have outrights on were going to win. But like I think Elliott was the only guy at the end that could have given something to Byron. And like you said, had he not gotten loose, I know they're racing competitively, but it sure as hell seemed like Chase Elliott was in line to win this race on the 40th anniversary for Hendrick Motorsports, considering the drought that he had been on. Like, it seemed like an Elliott day.
Yeah, but who was it? It was William Byron, Mr. 1/600 for Hendrick. He wins on the 40th anniversary day. Rick Hendrick's little guy,
yep.
That kid's incredible. Logano, of course, doesn't get the top 5 after looking like a top 5 car majority of the day. Bubba Wallace was a top 10 car. I talked about him for top 5. I just couldn't get myself to pull the trigger. Of course, Gregson's not the top 10. It's Ryan Preece is in there. Chase Briscoe's in there. So that was a little bit frustrating. Obviously, had the nice price on Briscoe prior to practice and qualifying. Got talked to Denny Hamlin, and he proverbially double birded me, barely getting a top 10. I thought Toyota was going to win. That was dumb.
I mean, think about it though. You had Bubba and Denny up front the majority of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, they were right there.
That's true. Thank you for making me feel a little bit better. Obviously, Chris Bell having the day he had was annoying. So you had Reddick, Larson, Gibbs. You had Bubba over MTJ, or no, Bubba over Elliott during practice and qualifying, which was nice. MTJ was kind of a non-factor. It was a little weird to see him not be as involved as maybe we thought he could be.
Well, I think that's just been a trend with him in the next gen car, that when he gets in traffic, he has not shown to be the guy that can actually make his way through the field anymore. And I don't know if it's just the car drives a lot differently than what suits his skill, like his talents. But yeah, he just has issues making his way through the field. When he has track position, he's great.
Yeah. So overall, not a good week, but like I said, we're still in the green. We're still making money, so that's all you can ask for. And like you said, we sometimes find bets off the pod that end up working out a little bit better. Brian obviously found that 20-1, something that wasn't widely available. And if it's something that pops up for a second, we grab, and then isn't available when we record, we're not going to mention it as an option because we don't think it's helpful.
And then let me also add to that, like, not like talking crap on anybody in the space or anything, but say somebody had bet that William Byron 20-1 number and then was touting themselves as, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like he was reposted at that number for a reason. Like obviously it was a mistake, but he wasn't anywhere near the top of the board because you had guys like Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, and who were the favorites and had the best cars for the majority
Yeah.
of the day. And it's just kind of like, I mean, yeah, I had 20-1 on Byron too, but that wasn't my only outright. It was literally I shotgunned the board to hopefully profit no matter who won, obviously unless Larson or Hamlin won. But yeah, like there's a couple of ways to look at it. Like if you're just looking at it to make money, which is what I did when I was in Vegas, I really had no rooting interest as long as somebody who I had an outright on took the race.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how our race unfolded. Hopefully you guys had some Byron exposure. Hopefully you hit some other bets. Brian was sent me a little note about the caution wager that we found on our favorite offshore, which was a nice little way to salvage some of my day as well.
Yeah, and well, I'll mention that real fast. So early in the week, Caesars posted 5.5 cautions as the over/under for the race. I very strongly considered betting that if it was still available when I got to Vegas, because we had never seen more than 5 cautions at Martinsville in the next gen car. And that includes the 2 fall races in the playoffs that are actually 100 more laps than what we saw this weekend. So clearly, you should have leaned the under there. It was plus money at the time. And then Bovada goes ahead and posts 7.5 yellows on the weekend. And like unfortunately for myself, I couldn't pull the trigger. I couldn't, I don't have big enough cojones to just go all in on this because I should have just smashed the under, but I did get Kyle to bet it.
I appreciate that. I do wonder, does Caesars? I always wonder with bets like that. Did Caesars number not count stage break cautions, and that's why it was five and a
Oh no,
half? And
they do.
okay, because I know some books do weird things with their.
No, honestly, I feel like the 5.5 number was the correct amount.
Yeah. Sometimes you find a nice little piece of candy sitting at the end of the road.
Yep.
Let's talk Texas because this is a very interesting race to bet. The lines have moved even since we talked a little bit last night.
Yep.
Obviously, you can shop numbers. You can find better numbers in certain places depending on who you want to find a piece of. But yeah, this is a mile and a half, a little bit of a faster mile and a half. So, Vegas, Kansas, maybe some Charlotte. You can even look a little bit of Michigan. It's not quite the same, but drivers who can do well there can tend to perform here. Larson, Reddick, Hamlin, Byron, and Blaney are your all your drivers inside 10-1. Yet again, Byron 7-1. He was best our second best driver rating, has a win here in the last in his wait, what was I looking at? Has a win here, one of the 3 drivers to get a win here since 2021, along with Kyle Larson and along with Tyler Reddick. I never know how to, like, I always want to be like, don't worry about what happened last week. Don't worry about who won. That doesn't matter. But then I'm like, is he going to really win back-to-back races? But he's won 3 of 6, 3 of 7 so far.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. But then is he going to win 4 of 8? So I don't know. Like, it's so stupid.
See,
I
I feel
guess
like
where's your head at with the guys that are in, shorter than 10-1?
yeah, so just real quick, I think I've started to deviate and move off of that thinking process and starting to think more of each race as its own season, basically. So yes, he won last week, but that means absolutely nothing in terms of what we're going into the next weekend. So I mean, again, I just have such a hard time going to the top of the board, and there's no way. I'll start off. I'm not betting Kyle Larson at 4-1. That's not happening. However, if he does go out here and throttle the field in practice and in qualifying, If you can get 4-1 post qualifying, post practice, like I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah.
Reddick at 6-1's too short for me, considering he hasn't really done shit this season. He was fine at Vegas, but I don't know. It's just hard to get to a number like this for a driver that he's won twice since the beginning of last year. I mean,
Yeah. It really feels like we could be talking on Saturday and he's like 11-1 again. But
well, exactly, because he opened at 12
yeah.
on Caesars, which that number got demolished
Yeah.
within like a minute. That was gone. But I have such a hard time betting somebody who just hasn't won consistently at such a short number. Now, Denny, Byron, and Blaine. I mean, I honestly feel like I'd put Blaney in the same category as Reddick. I know he won the championship, but his wins were all during the playoffs when the field kind of gets separated in terms of playoff cars and non-playoff cars. So his competitors were a little bit less, a little worried about that. So Hamlin and Byron are really the only guys I consider inside 10-1.
Yeah. Yeah, Byron's really compelling. I'm a little more optimistic on Reddick, but I think I am going to try and be patient because if he comes out and smokes the field in practice and qualifying, he's maybe 4.5-1, but at least I know he's awesome. Looking at iFantasy races, average speed rating, he is fourth behind Larson, behind Hamlin, behind Byron. But as you mentioned, like a lot of, not winning races. So how do we want to, we're betting a guy who can actually win. So, I don't know. It's hard to get that aggressive this early in the week. Maybe it's something where as the week rolls along, even if he's 5-1, I'll jump in at that point and call it a day.
Well, and two, you also have to account for the fact that, when we have practice and qualifying, like there are certain guys that qualify really well whose odds will change. And there are other guys who don't necessarily qualify well and maybe practice mediocrely, if that's even a word. They
It is
practice
now.
averagely. And their odds will probably stay the same. And at this point in the week, like that's what you're really looking for, the values on the board. And a guy like Reddick, unless he's a tenth or two faster than everybody else, like he's not popping off at shorter than 6-1. I mean, this isn't a road course, for gosh sakes.
Yeah. Let's talk inside 20. So we have Truex at 12, Bell at 12, Elliott at 12. Shop these numbers. You can find better at certain places.
Right now.
Bubba at 15, Gibbs at 15, Busch and Chastain at 16. Brian Twining, I mentioned it. I kind of teased it off the top. I just looked at Superbook, and Chase Elliott is 18-1, and he's going on the card.
I was just gonna say, like, so before I left Vegas, Superbook dropped odds on Monday after, like, late afternoon, and I made a couple of quick bets here. The first one was actually Bubba Wallace at 18-1, which, I mean, apparently it opened at 20, according to Mr. Chris Wormy, who he's probably the one that moved it. And right before we jumped on here, it was still 18 at BetMGM. And as soon as we started recording, it got down to 16. So clearly there are more people on the Bubba Wallace train here because he has been bad fast at every track type this year. 23-11 loves these 1.5s. Yeah, Bubba didn't have a great race at Vegas while Reddick did. I fully expect him to return to the kind of his normal performance here. That said, if you could get Chase Elliott at 18 with what we've seen the last couple of weeks, I love that. And he was one of the guys that I actually took a little tidbit on before I left Vegas, because I believe I either got it at 18 or 20.
Either way, it's a good number. I think if you can get it north of, I think 17 or better. 16 might be a little short, depending on what other prices there are floating around. I'm with you on Bubba. I think he is interesting, but also, like, I think 16 is probably my last buy attempt. I think if he gets below there, it's hard for me to. But, always shop these numbers. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, which, by the way, we really appreciate all the support and all the views and everybody watching and all that good stuff. But only like 30% of you are subscribed.
Hit the sub button.
Yeah, hit the subscribe button. Costs you nothing, does nothing to you, and helps us out tremendously. So please let's flip the numbers. Let's make 70% subscribe, 30% watching, so we can get to 1,000 subs. Do a really cool giveaway and keep this train rolling. Beyond Bubba, beyond Chase Elliott, Truex, Bell, Gibbs, Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain. Any interest in any of those guys?
I don't have any interest in those guys, but I'm sure I already added it to the card before I left Vegas. But Joey Logano is probably going to qualify near the front row again, and this number is going to be cut in half. Like,
Yeah.
Whether he's going to win the race or not, like when you're looking for plus CLV, I mean, he is the king of that at these tracks. Like Logano for me is somebody who's going to put his car up front. He's looked better of late. He looked fine last week. Obviously, completely different type of track. And yeah, we know there's struggles at 1.5s, but I mean, he's also looked better through the most recent string of races than he had last year, too. So if I'm going to go into this little mid range here, Logano's the guy for me at 20 because he's probably going to be qualifying inside the top 3 rows. This number is probably going to 14 or shorter, and you're very happy come race day.
If you want to thank me now, you can. He is 25 at Superbook.
Oh, even better.
No. That is why you shop it. Obviously, you don't have access to everything. You can only get what you can get. And if you only have access to 2 books and you really like a guy, just bet him. Don't overthink it. But if you have an ability to get to a better number, please do. Because as we talked about, this is hard to do. Hard, you can bet the right guy for 99.9% of the race. Things can get sideways, force overtime, and all of a sudden they're not winning the race. So something to remember. Brad Keselowski at 30, Chris Buescher at 33. The RFK boys have done well here. Do you have interest in either of them outright, or is it going to be potentially looking at them maybe in placings or matchups or whatever, thinking maybe they're a top 5 to 7 car, not necessarily a race winning car?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the numbers, but neither has really qualified well this year. And I feel like Keselowski, for instance, has performed extremely well at Texas in the past, but more of a top 10 guy, whereas Buescher doesn't have a single top 10 in the last 4 races here. So it's kind of hard to get to the outright market on them. I would much rather wait and even bet this at like 15 on either of them if they look good in practice. But I do think in the placement market, I think both of them are extremely intriguing.
Yeah, and Buescher was good at Vegas 1 too in terms of total speed rankings. He was 3rd, so was 3rd here at Texas last year. So there's a reason for optimism there. And look for better numbers if you can. There's a 30 at Superbook. Let's see here. Seeing what numbers are flailing around in the ether, as they say.
Yeah, and then also real quick, I'm looking at like the practice stuff, and one thing I forgot about Las Vegas this year was the trash bag.
The Phantom trash bag.
Yeah, for William Byron. If I'm not mistaken, that was the race that Byron's radiator got covered with the trash bag and killed his race when there was some speculation that he had the best car, even better than Kyle Larson. So
Sure felt like it. All right. What's the best number I can get on William Byron?
oh no.
Don't bet him this week because he's gonna
I was
lose.
just gonna say he's gonna wreck out.
I was looking back at the card from last year. He, looks like 7's the best I can get. Can you beat 7, Brian?
I don't think. I think that's probably the best number on him right now.
I'm adding 7. I had him at 8 and I think 14 last year. Yeah, he cashed those.
Yeah, because I mean, he qualified 4th in Vegas and practice. He was like the 2nd or 3rd best car in practice, and if he does that again, it's probably similar. Like I could see him popping off at like 5.5.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you're getting a little bit of value.
It depends on what like if Larson or Hamlin or any of the other guys do really well too. Any of these longer shots, Bowman at 28, Eric
Chase Briscoe
Jones.
at 100-1 again. I mean, we're talking $1.
Yeah.
I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I will. And then the guy right below him, I saw somebody else. I think it was our buddy Ryan at iFantasy Race. He mentioned it. Like RCR fielding a third car this week sure seems like a bad time to be stretching their resources out even more
Yeah.
when they can't even keep the friggin' cars on the track.
It sure feels like Austin Dillon getting replaced by Austin Hill is in the range of outcomes. So
Yeah.
I know there's the relationship there and all that stuff, but it's getting pretty bad at RCR. It's getting like they're at a point where they might need to just get rid of both their drivers and get some young guys in there and figure out a plan for going forward because they're just they're a dumpster fire right now.
Yeah.
All right, what else? Let's look at top manufacturer because those can be fun. Top Chevy, Larson plus 140, Byron plus 260, Chase 6-1. Don't hate that, but it's hard. It's hard to bet top Chevy because the odds of like them being top Chevy and not winning the race, like who? I mean, I guess we can talk about potential winners. I mean, we have
So
Reddick,
it's Larson and Byron.
Hamlin, or Blaney. I guess you could get like one of the Toyotas or maybe a Ford. I don't know.
I mean, Ford hasn't won shit, so
It's fair.
that's a problem when you're
That's
shopping that
completely
market.
fair. Reddick 250, Denny 280, Bubba 4.5. I kind of like that.
I feel like there's still value on Christopher Bell though. 5.25.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
I might look to get him in on some matchups because he's one of those guys, like as soon as you think, oh yeah, he's not going to compete this week, Christopher, he's gonna show up. I mean, he was great here in the fall last year, not so
Yeah.
good in the spring, but
No. He's got a really weird run of
sorry, I was talking about
results.
Vegas.
3rd, 11th, 3rd, 10th, 34th, and 4th. But his driver ratings haven't been that great. He's kind of an average starter. I don't know.
That is something that I've noticed about Bell this year is that he's not qualifying great.
No. Chastain is sort of interesting in like the top Chevy market, but
I don't know what to do with that guy. Like,
yeah, it's like every year with this guy, it's like ebbs and flows of looking amazing and looking terrible, and then having the best car at the championship race, and then just kind of like going away for a while. Like I don't know what to make of Trackhouse in general. Blaney is basically even money to top Ford, which is wild. Logano at 4-1, Brad at 5.5, and Buescher at 6.5 is really compelling.
good gracious.
I'm gonna add Brad at 550.
Oh, the Logano number. That's probably getting added for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting too. That's interesting as well. Let's see here.
Yeah, I'm gonna add the Logano number. I don't understand why he should be 4-1.
You think that's the best, or do you think do you like it? Would it be worth adding? Go ahead.
Let's see Logano's top 3 finish. He's 6-1 the top 3.
Oh.
But Ford's, like we've talked about, they haven't come close to winning.
Keselowski since 2020. I think that's an all-star race, but 9th, 6th, 2nd, 4th, 9th, 8th, 7th. So he's like
He's a top 10
Basically,
guy.
top 10 car with even more upside. He's been 7th, 8th, and 9th. He's gone up one spot every year. So he'll be a 6th this year, and then he'll be a top 5 next year. So remember that. Write that down.
All right. Yeah. So I'm gonna add the Logano top forward.
Yeah. Buscher's more of a wild ride. I trust Keselowski to be more even. So plus 550. Welcome to the card.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm really disappointed that Caesars has stopped opening most of their placement markets early. Like right now, all they have listed is top 3.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to have a buffet of stuff to talk about. Now we have like a handful. At least we're getting like top 4s and stuff. We know what we need to do. Click on the race and look at the finishing position props. And maybe that's why they're not doing top 10s.
Oh, that's a good point.
Skeezers. All right, let me look at something real quick. Which, by the way, anybody who has access to Caesars, you click on the race and it comes up. I know some people are having issues finding the finishing position props. All right, Alex Bowman, 15.5. The under is getting pounded, but that feels pretty good. I'm even at minus 125.
Oh, I'm adding the Bubba Wallace thing.
Yeah, same.
Under. Yeah.
Even if it's minus 140.
Yeah, I don't care. I'll pay down. I'll pay up for that.
Byron under 6.5 minus 105. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, but I almost feel like, wow, look at the McDowell number. That's wild.
Yeah, he's donezo. I feel like a number just went away. Am I crazy?
The number's what?
I feel like there was another bet that was here that's not here anymore.
Well, I do know that they do add and remove quickly. No, those are all of them.
Okay.
Yeah, that Bowman number seems interesting as well because the HMS cars have been really fast.
Yeah.
I wish we had more of those though. Like I want more of the back markers, like more of the guys like McDowell over under 20.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be nice.
And speaking of McD, 3 straight 17th or better finishes here at Texas. I know at Vegas he wasn't great, but no.
Yeah, I just like he was looking awesome for like a few weeks, and now he's just like gone to purgatory. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I almost feel like you'd need plus money on that.
Bubba minus 110 versus Tyrone Gibbs. I kind of like that. Although Gibbs is good at the mile and a halfs.
Well, Gibbs is fast. That's
Bowman is minus 130 and Brad is plus 100 in a matchup. I feel like those shouldn't be favored really one way or the other. If anything, I think Brad should be the favorite, but I don't know.
It's got to be a case of it. Teams, team versus manufacturer, HMS versus Ford.
Well, and Chevy versus what Ford's done.
Yeah.
Byron plus 100 versus Denny Hamlin. Bell plus 100 versus Martin Truex. Those are compelling.
Man, I think some of these are hard to get down on because they don't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, when they pencil in a lot of guys that are kind of in a similar boat, I don't feel like I'm getting that good of a deal. Or two guys that I'm similarly excited about.
Yeah, and something else too I've noticed the last couple of weeks, I've found not necessarily more value, but just better bets post qualifying.
Yeah.
It's like I know we're always looking for value here before the end of the week, or before they get on track.
Yeah. But that's why we need to grab the numbers that are really jumping out, and then if it's like borderline or not really that good of a bet, let's just let it be. And if we have to end up betting it at a slightly shorter number, then that's what it is. But like, we're just trying to beat the market at this point. Like, we can't like be, I don't know. We can't be spraying the board this early. I think that's what caused a lot of our early issues last year. I think
Yeah.
we're being a lot smarter that way.
Kind of disappointed that they don't have a caution prop this week because holy effing crap. There has been a ton of cautions the last few races here.
I mean, we can bet the race to go to overtime at plus 450.
You're looking for 3 straight?
Let's see here.
Something else that I do find really interesting about this race, though, too, is that the last 2 years of the first 2 races in the next gen car both came in September. They both came in the playoffs. So how is that going to change how guys race, how aggressive people are? Like, I definitely think we're going to see different racing than we have the last 2 runs here.
Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal point.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see how that plays out.
Chase plus 125 versus Ryan Blaney. Ryan Priest plus 150 versus Chase Briscoe. Those are on DraftKings.
Oh, I don't hate that. I'm not betting Chase Elliott, though. That's my problem.
That sounds
Not
like
against Ryan Blaney. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Let's see what Superbook has, because they always have a ton of matchups.
That's what I'm looking at right now. Here, I'll pull it up. All right. So, Reddick plus 125 versus Larson. Hamlin plus 125 versus Larson. Hamlin and Reddick are even money. Byron and Reddick are even money. Blaney plus 115 versus Reddick. Chase plus 100 versus Ross. Like, do we want to fade Ross? Like, we don't really want to fade him. But we don't really want to bet on him. Like, we just literally don't know what to do with him.
Exactly. He's almost a stay away right now. Really interesting too is that back at Vegas, I remember Ross Chastain had the fastest single lap in practice and then absolutely sucked in qualifying.
Yeah, that's his thing. Ross Chastain looks awesome in practice and sucks during race day, or qualifies like shit, and then gets to the front and is a rocket ship. There's no in between.
Yeah. I do kind of like what I've seen out of Elliott recently, though.
And that's the problem. We're being set up for failure here.
I know, but maybe they're trying to draw money in on him because people have kind of...
Yeah. He used to be an easy bet because everybody loves him, but now he's not even really contending. People are like,
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take the plus money on Elliott over Chastain.
Okay.
Just because I think that the way that HMS has been unloading, I think there's a good chance he probably qualifies better than Chastain, and he probably looks a little bit better than him in practice, and this number probably flips.
Yeah.
And ideally, this flips to like Maybe
Plus
Chastain
150.
really sucks, and this floats out to like plus 130. Then you just bet the other side.
Yep. And then you get your money. I love it. I love it a lot. All right, let's recap our card. Let's give the people our favorite bet, at least at this point, where the value may or may not be. And then we'll get out of here.
It's going to be short
So,
this week.
yeah. 4 bets for me. Elliott, 18. Byron, 7. Brad K, top Ford. And Bubba Wallace, under 12.5. Minus 140, but that's fine. Brian, break down your card.
Yeah, so I got 3 outrights right now. Bubba Wallace at 16, Elliott at 18, and Logano at 25. The last two both at Superbook right now. And then taking the bait on Logano top Ford at 4-1 and Bubba Wallace under 12.5, same as Kyle. And then I am going with the Elliott over Chastain matchup.
Yeah, I like it. We're both in on Elliott though, so that scares me.
Speaking of that, I'm also going to add Chase Elliott top Chevrolet at that 6-1 price.
I think it's a good number.
Yeah.
What is his number here? Because maybe you get a better number. I think it's on here.
Yeah, because he's plus 330 for a top 3. So if he's top 3, I think he's probably winning.
Yeah, and 6-1 is really nice. So eat that up. Brian Twining, it's good to be back. It was good to talk Martinsville. Obviously, get people excited about Texas. If you have a bet you love, if you have an outright that you found that you love, let us know down in the comments. Like I said, if you have yet to hit subscribe and you're finding value with our videos, make sure you do that. Costs you nothing. You can also check out our Substack, aoppodcast.substack.com. You'll get that in your inbox on race days every Sunday morning. Brian, I didn't quite make the top 15 yet in GridRivals, but I'm working on it. Hopefully we'll be there maybe after Texas. I got to look at my lineup this week and figure out. I kind of squeezed in some scrubs at the end to make some stuff work, but see if we can't get this train moving down the track just a little bit more.
And I know I'll have a lot more attention paid on the race because it won't be Final Four weekend either.
Yeah, college basketball is done. Now it's just NASCAR. Although it is Masters weekend, so I'm going to be locked in to the golf for sure. But I will not leave NASCAR Nation hanging. We will bet. We will hopefully cash some winners and get you set for DraftKings on Saturday night in your feed Sunday morning. Make sure you are subscribed so you get that as soon as it drops. If you're on the East Coast, we usually drop it around 2:30 out here on the West. So 5:30 a.m. if you're out with the kids or you're off, going somewhere, going to work on a Sunday morning, whatever the case may be, make us a part of your Sunday morning. That is Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next time.